Hi, my name is Oleksiy and I'm Ukrainian. You might know me from the Atomic Heart video, which was pretty controversial. I was talking about the funding of Russian gaming companies during the war, which is still bad. It's still happening, you know. People are still buying Russian games and don't think about the consequences. But this video is different. This video is a different topic. It's not about gaming. It's not about games. But at the same time, gaming is a part of the problem. I need to tell you a short story before we go to the main topic of the video. How did I notice this weird mainstream that's going on in the Western community? So recently I've created a topic on Steam about the Bandai Namco, about the fact that they doubled the price for the From Software games in Ukraine. I've noticed one particular comment that created the whole thread of similar comments online. And not only on Steam and not only about gaming. And that is what I want to talk about today. This video is not about regional pricing, trust me. The video is about a totally different thing. But gaming is a part of it. Okay, so the comment was this: enjoy waiting, economics suck, but the greater world doesn't just bend to your will because you live in a war-torn country. It sucks, but it is what it is. And then goes this part. That is the problem. I'm more confused that if you're so upset about what's going on, why you're playing video games instead of defending your country or making a difference. But I shouldn't be surprised that you're trying to use something as awful as war to justify why you shouldn't have to buy a video game at full price in your region. That is a manipulative comment. And there goes the next one. You're not in a state of war, your country is. Maybe go help that effort instead of worrying about the video game price. You literally have bigger things to fuzz over. It's like impoverished people in the US wanting Gucci slides but living in Section 8 housing, or impoverished people in Latin American countries complaining about regional pricing on goods when the majority of those countries are corrupted by drug cartels. Don't you people literally have bigger problems to be trying to solve? And there's a lot of these. A lot. And I was thinking about the mainstream way of thinking about the war in Ukraine and Western community. Because we don't know, we're not communicating enough. And if that's the case, if that's the real, way of thinking, then I have to explain something. A lot of Americans were triggered by watching this video from Kyiv McDonald's, where people are eating food, enjoying their life, if you can call it that, and then this manipulative video shows some drug addicts or homeless people laying on the ground, and of course the text like, give Ukraine more money or something like that. You know, the mocking shit about Ukrainians being happy during the war. And here's another example. This is the new Twitter wave of hate for Ukraine. This tweet is insanely viral right now. And it's the same thing. A lot of people in the West think that there are only two conditions that Ukrainians should live in. You're either on the battlefield trying to kill as much enemies as you can, or you're laying down in the shelter during the air raid. That's it, two conditions a Ukrainian person has to live in, according to these people. And how dare Ukrainians walk around and not die at home after another missile strike? Ukrainians are playing video games during the war. What an assholes. Wow, they drink coffee, they go to the movie theaters, celebrating birthdays, listen to new music on Spotify. Wow, how's this even possible? Not every place, not every city in Ukraine is an active war zone. Every city is in danger, that is true, but some of the cities like Kyiv, the capital, is more protected than the others. Being a capital, Kyiv has the best air defense system, the Patriots. But sometimes even Patriots can't handle the amount of missiles that are trying to hit the city. Or drones. You don't hit drones with Patriots. Anyways, these air defense systems, they don't work like 100%. They're hitting like 95% of all missiles that are trying to hit the city. But 5% of them can reach their destination, and then some of them fall on the civilian buildings and people die. That can happen to every single person in Ukraine, including me right now. Our skies are protected only because we have your help. If Kyiv wasn't so protected, you'd see fucking ruins instead of my face right now. There are cities on the front line that have completely vanished, leveled to the ground. People who lived there are dead, children are dead. Animals are dead. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are either dead or evacuated or kidnapped to Russia. And those men who lived in that vanished city, Ukrainian men, are being forced to take the weapons and shoot other Ukrainians. Because if they don't, they're dead. Dead right there on the spot. Or being tortured and then killed in the back of their head in some fucking dirty basement. And all of this happened only because they didn't have the right amount of weapons for protection. That's why we're asking for more, because it's not enough. Still not enough. We need fighter jets, we need tanks, we need fucking artillery, because in the 90s we gave all of our weapons to Russia, who promised us that they wouldn't ever attack. And basically our military forces, who collect the evidence on the ground when the rocket hits some building, they've collected all the parts of the rockets and noticed one thing, that the numbers on the rockets are Ukrainian numbers, so they're hitting us with our own rockets that we gave them in the 90s. You can never trust Russians. Those destroyed ghost cities of Ukraine didn't have the right amount of weapons to repel the invasion, so Russians could go further and, occupy their city or destroy the city completely. They understand only force. No words can do anything. Only force, only bullet in the head can stop them. And the lack of resources, of course, but that's kind of hard thing to do, because Russia is so big, it has so much resources, so much money. India and China are buying their oil and gas, supplying Russia with money. So we have to break this circle somehow, because if they don't have enough money or resources, they can't build tanks, they can't build fire jets, they can't build artillery. But the most disturbing part of this is this. I have a feeling that some of the Western people want Ukrainians to suffer more so they could have an explanation for themselves why their government is giving Ukraine more help. And if we don't suffer enough, they get annoyed. They want to expect constant misery from Ukrainian people in order to help them. Constant terror, constant death, constant animal abuse from Russians, constant child rapes, constant fucking everything. And this really disturbs me. Like that video with the drug addicts. We're not the ones to blame for drug addicts on the streets of LA. We're not the ones to blame that we have clean McDonald's in our cities. That's actually an achievement for me. If we are keeping things clean during such fucked up times, that's an achievement and not something to blame me for. Clean your McDonald's. What's the problem? These two videos show you how it is. People are walking down the street with their children and families, and then the Russian ballistic hypersonic missile called the Dagger, or Kinjal, hits them. And it's a precision strike missile, which means that they did it on purpose. Their main targets were civilians. I mean, the strike was planned before. The exact coordinates were planned before. There are no military structures around. Nothing military. Basically, it was a park or something like that. That's what happens. The fucking missile hits you while you're walking down the street. What do you want people in Kyiv and other cities to be doing? Do you want them to not work so the economy stops and collapses? What do we need to do to stop this mainstream way of thinking? You want to see every Ukrainian sitting in the fucking bomb shelter all the time and not come out of it because they're scared? You want us to constantly die under the wreckage? What is acceptable to you? Did you all know that people during World War II were having parties in London, New York and other cities? You can literally search for those images and videos online. They're out there. Life has to move on. Life doesn't stop because of war. That's some imitation of normalcy, so we're not losing our fucking head over here because of the PTSD. Living a life in Ukraine is not simple. You can't imagine it. You've never experienced anything like this. I can go to sleep tonight and never wake up because one of the fucking missiles hits my building where I sleep. If my sleep is too deep and I don't hear the air raid, I can literally die in my sleep. Every day. And that happens very, very often. Too often. There's nothing wrong with me drinking coffee in the morning. I'm drinking coffee in the morning and my thoughts are like, well, alright, I'm alive. But then I take my iPhone and start reading the morning news and I see that some families didn't wake up. It's not a fucking movie, it's not a TV show, it's real, it's right here. Again, life has to move on. War doesn't mean that there's no space for life. And it's very disturbing, thinking that the only way for Western people to understand the severity of life in Ukraine is to see people suffer every day. It's crazy that you actually want to see Ukrainians suffer. And I think that all of this comes from lack of understanding. Also, I think that our silence is a big problem too. streamers, YouTube creators, diplomatic efforts, news media, lack of English-speaking content from Ukraine in general, and that's why I'm here trying to clear things out. Because I keep seeing these messages, man, I keep seeing that. If Ukrainians don't suffer, we don't give them money. We don't give them protection, we don't give them weapons because… Anyways, have a great sleep. Have a great morning coffee, enjoy your life, man. And remember that being free from the war is a huge privilege. Be grateful to your country and your army that you're safe. Peace. And so it's 1 a.m. in the morning. So I'm preparing to go to the shelter, and that's how it is. Alright, I should go and gather my backpack.